I'm Sean White, and today we're meditating on the sous vide cooking method. Often when I'm working with clients who are trying to eat healthier, they get overwhelmed with different cooking techniques, right? It's completely understandable because most of us, myself definitely included in this, grew up in households that did what I like to call functional cooking. That is, you make food whose sole purpose is just to sustain you. They may not be the prettiest looking dishes or the best tasting dishes, but they'll keep you alive, right? So that's why I like to demo easy techniques that sound hard or sound fancy, but really aren't. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get started talking about the cooking method of sous vide. So what is sous vide? Well, sous vide is a method of cooking that was invented by the French chef Georges Prélis in 1974. And sous vide translates to under vacuum in French, and that describes part of the cooking method. You put food in a vacuum sealed plastic pouch and cook it in a warm water bath of a predetermined temperature. Now, the cook time is longer than usual and can be anywhere from 1 to 7 hours. Now, the temperature that you're cooking at is much lower than what you would normally cook at, and it depends on what you are cooking. Typically, you'll be around the 130 to 140 Fahrenheit mark for red meats, 150 to 160 degrees for poultry, and higher temperatures for vegetables. Now, the intent is to cook the item evenly, ensuring that the inside is properly cooked to the internal temperature you're looking to achieve without overcooking the outside. Now, being that the food is in a sealed bag, there is no place for the moisture to evaporate to, and therefore it remains juicy inside and never gets dried out. So you can see the benefits of cooking this way. Impossible to overcook and never gets dried out. Kind of wish you could like sous vide a turkey on Thanksgiving. So let's talk about what you'll need to get started. Well, the first thing you're going to need is a vacuum sealer. Now, here's the one that I currently use, and I like this one. Now, besides using it to cook sous vide dishes, I also use it to portion out foods, usually meats, that I have too much of. It's also really good for marinating foods because the vacuuming out of all the air forces the marinade into the meat better. Now, a lot of times I'll put a marinade on something, vacuum seal it, and then throw it into the freezer. This way, when I defrost it, it already has a flavor profile going on, and if I'm cooking it in a sous vide, then I'm already one step ahead of the game. Now, as an example, this is a pork tenderloin that I've rubbed with spices, placed pineapple rinds around the outside, and then sealed it up to kind of do a pineapple al pastor pork. The pineapple enzymes will actually help tenderize the pork a bit more, which is why I put them in there. And this is what I'll be having for dinner tonight. So the next thing you'll need is a sous vide circulator. Now, this is going to heat the water up to a desired temperature and keep it at that temperature, right? That is the most important part here. We could do this in a pot on the stove with a candy thermometer, but we would have to keep making micro adjustments to the heat to make sure we're exactly where we want to be. It's very important that we maintain a consistent temperature throughout the cooking process, and that's what the circulator will do for us. Now, lastly, you're going to need a container to hold the water that the circulator can sit in. Obviously, it'll have to be big enough for whatever you're trying to cook to fit in and be surrounded on all sides by water. So now here's the two main sous vide options that I currently have. Right? This is my sous vide circulator from a company called Innova. I like this one a lot. It's pretty simple to use because all you are doing is turning it on, setting a temperature, and setting a cook time. This model also has Bluetooth, so I can connect it to an app on my phone and make changes, start or stop it, track where I'm at in the cooking process. Makes it quite handy. Now, here's my water container with a lid that just has enough space for the circulator to fit in. This prevents a lot of evaporation from happening, so the water level never gets too low. I would say that the only thing I don't love about the setup is that I need to have a lot of water in the container for the circulator to actually work. And if you're only cooking something small, it's a little bit wasteful. Now, next to it here, I have my Ninja Foodi 11-in-1 Pro, and this thing is great, right? I originally bought it for the pressure cooker and the air fryer functions, but the sous vide function works great as well. The nice thing is you can put in just as much water as you need, and with the pressure cooker lid, there's no concern about the water evaporating. Now, the only negative I have with the sous vide function here is you can only set the temperature in 5-degree increments, right? With the Innova circulator, I can set it to any exact temperature I want, which is good because I often cook things a couple of degrees lower than I want them to be, and we'll discuss why in a minute. Now, my third option is my oven. This oven is pretty new, and it comes with a whole bunch of cooking methods, and one of them is something called air sous vide. Now, this works essentially the same way, but instead of water, it uses air. Now, typically with older stoves, you can never go below 170 degrees, so it was never an option. This one I could set all the way down to 100 degrees for bread proofing, which is quite nice. And I'll admit, I haven't tried the air sous vide option yet, but if you do have a newer stove, you should see if it has the option, because if it does, you don't need to buy any other equipment except for a vacuum sealer. So let's get cooking this pork tenderloin. So I'm going to put this in at 137 degrees for 4 hours. Right? Now, this is one of the drawbacks of sous vide. It's a low temperature, long time cooking method, which means you need to plan this out in advance. It's kind of like doing a slow cooker meal. So in some regards, super convenient, and in others, not so much. Now, I'm cooking this at 137 degrees because I really want it to be 140 degrees when I'm done, which should be about a medium cook temperature. Now, when it comes out, it's not going to be all browned and nice looking, because we cooked it at a low temperature in a sealed bag. You know, there was no opportunity for that Maillard reaction to happen, where you get the browning from the amino acids and sugars reacting to the higher heat. So what I'll do is I'll take the pork and either throw it on a grill or on a flat top and give it a sear and get that color that I want. So between resting the meat and then that last bit of cooking, it should bring it up to those last 3 degrees and get me to that 140 degree internal temperature that I want. So while this is cooking, let's talk about the pros and cons of sous vide. So let's start with the pros. Number one, it is impossible to overcook anything unless you set the temperature wrong, right? It's the type of thing that you can turn on and then go out for a bit and come back home and have it all done. I can also pre-sous vide a bunch of steaks for a barbecue to different temperatures and then finish them all off on the grill at the same time. Or I can sous vide a bunch of stuff on the weekend and then have an easier time cooking during the week. Now, if you're going to do that, just make sure you get them into the fridge or freezer relatively quickly, when they're done cooking, so they don't spend a lot of time in what's known as the danger zone, right? Cooked food shouldn't be left between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit for very long, or you run the risk of bacteria forming. Now, this isn't just for sous vide, this is for all cooked foods. This is just a safety thing. Now for meats, cooking at a low temperature can be better for you. See our video on why you should never grill a steak. This low temperature cooking method prevents the heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that can form when cooking meats at high temperatures in pans or on grills. Now for vegetables, it's great because cooking at low temperatures allows them to remain more succulent because the cell walls don't burst like they do at higher temperatures. This allows them to be thoroughly cooked while maintaining a firm and somewhat crisp texture. It's kind of like the process of blanching and shocking vegetables, right? So think of vegetables that look all sad and wilted when they've been overcooked. It's because the cell wall structures have been compromised. Now, let's talk about some of the cons of sous vide cooking, right? It does take more planning to do, so maybe not always so convenient, right? You do have to plan this stuff out. You also need to buy additional equipment, right? And this can be a bit of an investment. You're probably looking at about $100 for a sous vide setup and maybe another $50 for a vacuum sealer with bags. Now, the Ninja Foodie that I showed you is currently around $170 on Amazon, which is more than the sous vide alone, but it does so many things, I really think it's worth it, right? It replaced a whole bunch of equipment in my kitchen, and I use it all the time. Now, another safety thing is you need to make sure that anything that you're cooking is cooked long enough to be pasteurized, right? This can be a problem with low and slow cooking. If you're cooking within that danger zone of 40 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, there is a risk of foodborne illness from the growth of pathogenic bacteria. However, after a few hours over 135 degrees, most bacteria will be destroyed. So remember, low and slow usually also includes and long, right? This is why my pork is going for 4 hours here. And the last thing is the fact that there may be some negatives in regards to chemical compounds from the plastic bags migrating into the foods when the bags are heated, right? There is some controversy over this, and most of the studies that I've looked at don't find any real danger with this. I just like to give you all the facts in regards to things. Hey, I think my pork is done here. So let's finish it off and plate it up. So I hope you found this helpful. Sous vide may sound fancy, but it's really pretty simple. It's a really easy way to make great dishes that aren't overcooked. Now, I hope you found this informative and perhaps sparked your interest in this cooking method. If you like this video, then click the like button and share it with your friends. If you want to hear more of what I got to say, then subscribe, turn on notifications, find out when new videos are coming out, and leave me some comments down below. Have you tried sous vide cooking? Is it something that you're interested in? Let me know. And until we speak again, be well, be safe, and be kind to everybody.